Okay, so everyone should be aware that this meeting is being recorded. So welcome back to the afternoon session of the annual meeting of the Empire chapter of the Soil and Water Conservation Society. Right now we have, oh, you know what? I didn't practice this. Your last name, I should know it by now, but
Oh, that's okay.
I don't want to butcher
It's
it. So I'm just
it's
going to go with,
Bzduch.
what's that?
It's Bzduch.
Bzduch, that's right.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I really should know it. And anyway.
It's okay.
Yeah, so thanks, Bethany. So Bethany's joining us. She is the Ag Point program manager. Is that still true? Nope.
Well, I am still serving in that capacity, but I am now the executive director of the State Soil and Water Conservation Committee.
Right. Yes. I apologize. I knew that you had that. I forgot what it was called. So I think I'll get this part right though. You are with the Department of Ag and Markets, and you're been very kind to give us time today to talk about the Climate Smart Commodities funding through Ag and Markets that goes through the districts. And so before I butcher anything else that you have to say, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to you. And thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you so much, Aaron. So we already kind of introduced me, but I'll introduce myself again. I'm Bethany Bzduch. I'm the executive director of our State Soil and Water Conservation Committee. And I would like to thank the Soil and Water Conservation Society for inviting me here today to speak about the New York State Connects Climate Smart Farms and Forests project. This project was funded through the USDA Partnerships for Climate Smart Commodities program. That program was announced early in 2022 with the goal to support partnerships that support climate smart farms, ranchers, and forest owners, in addition to having the goal of supporting the production and marketing of climate smart commodities. So in response to that solicitation, partners from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, Division of Lands and Forests, Ag and Markets, Cornell University, SUNY ESF, and Syracuse University collaborated to develop a comprehensive, multifaceted proposal that includes a wide range of goals and objectives. Specifically, that application included best management implementation objectives for the agricultural and forestry sectors. There is an element for education and outreach. And also this application included a component to enhance and support research and tool development.
No,
Am I coming through okay still?
Yeah, sorry about that. So everyone, just please mute. I do have the master control to mute you, but just try to remember to be muted. So go ahead, Bethany.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, so the partners developed a very comprehensive proposal that was submitted and ultimately was awarded. So the New York State Connects project was one of 26 projects that was awarded in New York State and received an award of $60 million to implement the deliverables over the course of a 5-year time frame. So ultimately, this project will help to achieve the targets of the New York State Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, which, as folks probably know, was one of the most ambitious climate laws to be passed. As part of that act, a scoping plan was developed that identified some pretty aggressive targets in terms of reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So the work that will hopefully be achieved through this project will help to work towards those goals, specifically towards a 40% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2030, 85% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2050, and then work towards a goal of carbon neutrality by 2050 as well. So in addition to working towards those goals from the CLCPA, This project will allow us to improve the ability to monitor, measure, and verify climate-related benefits. It also helps us to assess the work that we're doing so we can continue to get better and continue to work towards meeting those goals that are in the CLCPA. And lastly, this project will help make market connections for climate smart farms. So there are a number of anticipated project outcomes. Some of them I kind of just touched on, but first and foremost, this project and the funds that were awarded through this project will help to increase funding resources for, or that will provide assistance to farmers and landowners for the implementation of climate smart agriculture and forestry practices through already established programs that are supported by state funding. Specifically, the Climate Resilient Farming Program that is administered by the State Soil and Water Conservation Committee in coordination with the Department of Ag and Markets, and the Department of Environmental Conservation's Regenerate New York program. We also will be utilizing the federal funding to increase access of our programs and resources for underserved and underrepresented farms, hopefully to encourage an increased participation in those programs for those farms. We also, as I already mentioned, want to improve the quantification methodology and verification of practice benefits for greenhouse gas reductions and carbon sequestration, and hope to improve and make connections for those make market connections for those climate-friendly commodities. Each of the partners that are involved in this project all have unique deliverables and pieces of the project that they will be responsible for. Specifically, DEC, the Division of Land and Forest, and Ag and Markets, we will be responsible for providing direct assistance to landowners across New York State to implement climate smart best management practices to address forest management, as well as to address the agricultural sector. And we'll be doing that by enhancing and expanding already established state programs. Cornell University and SUNY ESF will be working towards developing measurement, monitoring, reporting, and verification protocols and research and tool development to help us conduct those activities. Cornell will also be working towards providing additional outreach to those underserved or underrepresented farms and landowners. And lastly, Syracuse University will be focusing on making those market connections for the climate smart commodities. So my next few slides, I'm just going to take a little bit of time to go through, hopefully a little bit more detail, the deliverables that each of the partners will be working towards as part of the New York State Connects project. So I'm going to start with Ag and Markets. And in total, Ag and Markets and subsequently the State Soil and Water Conservation Committee will be utilizing $24.5 million to expand our current programs, specifically the Climate Resilient Farming Program, but also we'll be utilizing some of those funds to develop 2 new pilot programs. So want to touch on the first pilot program that will be developed utilizing the Climate Smart Commodities funding. And that is a pilot program for the payment for methane monitoring and reporting. Approximately $2 million will be made available for this program. And what we're hoping to achieve through this pilot program is to incentivize data monitoring and collection and provide payments to farms and soil and water conservation districts for the collection, tracking, and reporting of methane emission reductions on covering flare systems or existing anaerobic digester systems. The overall goal of this pilot project would be to track that methane destruction of those particular practices that are used for manure management, and to measure and report what's the amount of methane that is actually being destroyed by those systems in order to better evaluate the greenhouse gas reduction estimates that are out there. This data that we're able to collect through this pilot program will help in those, help develop and verify the long-term verification of the methane destruction that's coming from those systems. By working with farms who are interested in participating in this program, that data that we collect is going to be valuable to help us, assess how well those types of systems are working in terms of how well they're destroying that methane, and will allow us to continue to evaluate and continue to move forward so we can keep working towards those goals that are written into the scoping plan for the CLCPA. The payments that farms receive through this program will be able to be utilized so they can continue to maintain their system to ensure that the monitoring portion of it is working optimally, so we can continue to gather the best data possible to make sure that the systems are functioning as they are intended. The next pilot project is a pilot for adaptive management for methane and nitrous oxide reduction. There will be $2 million made available for this pilot program as well. And through this particular program, we are hoping to be able to provide support to farmers for the use of Cornell's Net Carbohydrate and Protein System, or the CNCPS tool. This tool is used to predict requirements, feed utilization, animal performance, and nutrient excretion for dairy and beef cattle. The overall goal of what we're hoping to achieve with this pilot project is to incentivize the use of that tool, which integrates greenhouse gas emissions into the decision-making process for those farms so that they can make improved decisions regarding their feeding strategies to ultimately reduce the emissions, the greenhouse gas emissions. This program will support the data collection for, again, continual improvements on the farm, and will also create a rate structure for payments and performance metrics on increased efficiencies. So moving into the next portion of funding that is going to be utilized through Ag and Markets and the State Soil and Water Conservation Committee is $10.5 million will be utilized to support alternative manure management practices. Specifically, with these funds, we're looking to expand the financial resources that are being offered through the Climate Resilient Farming Program to cost share alternative manure management systems. Just real quickly, the Climate Resilient Farming Program is one that is relatively new to the State Soil and Water Conservation Committee, group of programs that we administer. And the goal of this program is to mitigate the impact of agriculture on climate change and enhance on-farm adaptation and resiliency to projected climate conditions. Through this program, we make funding available through 3 different tracks of, focused type projects. Track 1 specifically of the Climate Resilient Farming Program supports livestock manure management and alternative waste management and precision feed management. So with these, with this $10.5 million, we are looking to expand that track for our next upcoming rounds of funding. So we just closed round 7 of the CRF program, and we'll be working to integrate the Climate Smart Commodities funding into round 8 of the CRF program, which we are anticipating being able to release early next year in 2024. And subsequently, we also want to be able to utilize some of these funds in round 9 of the CRF program, which is likely to come out in 2025. So with the addition of these funds into CRF, we are really looking to prioritize manure storage cover and flare systems with the goal to reduce methane emissions from livestock operations or to just avoid methane altogether. These funds will be used to support manure collection, separation, storage and treatment, and feed management. All of those practices will be able to be incentivized with the federal funding. The last piece of funding that will be utilized by Ag and Markets is we'll have approximately $10 million for the adoption of climate smart practices for agroforestry, silvopasture, urban agriculture, and soil health. And again, we will be utilizing the Climate Smart Commodities funding to expand the current financial resources that are offered through the Climate Resilient Farming Program in the next rounds that are upcoming. So as I just mentioned, we're looking to integrate some of these funds into round 8 and then subsequently into round 9. These funds specifically would be worked into track 3 of the Climate Resilient Farming Program, which is our Healthy Soils New York track. And we would utilize the Climate Smart Commodities funding to further incentivize agroforestry, silvopasture, soil health systems, and support urban agriculture. All of the practices, in the entire Climate Resilient Farming Program, but in this track particularly align with the practices that have been identified in the CLCPA scoping plan. And we're hoping that by further supporting and providing further financial support to farms through CRF, we will incentivize these systems to encourage long-term adoption, which will ultimately provide carbon sequestration benefits and co-benefits. These practices don't only have a benefit to the climate, but a lot of these practices also provide really awesome water quality benefit and habitat restoration and the like. So moving on to the deliverables that will be worked on by our partners at the Department of Environmental Conservation. So these folks will be utilizing $13 million of the Climate Smart Commodities funding to expand the Regenerate New York cost share grant program. So this is a program that is administered through New York State DEC and has a goal to assist private landowners with the costs of establishing successful forest regeneration on private forest land within New York State. The most recent round of funding that was offered made a total of $850,000 available to support projects that would support that goal of the program. So being able to utilize the Climate Smart Commodities funding, DEC will be able to substantially grow and expand the Regenerate New York program. They're hoping to be able to provide additional funding directly to forest landowners who are interested in participating and apply to the program. But they also want to build and hope to build capacity to directly implement practices for those landowners. There are several practices that are identified in the New York State Connects project that they are going to be working towards. Specifically, we want to incentivize and encourage afforestation and reforestation practices. These funds will support forest stand restoration, help to address competing vegetation control and implement those types of practices within the forest. And also will help to implement deer exclosures or physical barriers to help reduce the pressure that deer browse pressure, and those would include fencing or the implementation of slash walls. So partners at Cornell University, again, will be heading up and working towards improving, measuring, monitoring, and verification of the agricultural practices. So they will be able to utilize $10.5 million of the Climate Smart Commodities funding to work towards quantifying farm and entity level greenhouse gas emissions, as well as quantifying the expected emission reductions from management changes that will happen on the farm. They will be developing and improving modeling tools and MMRV protocols that we will be able to use now for the practices that are included in the Climate Smart Commodities grant, but also into the future, again, to continue looking at the practices that are being implemented through our programs and assessing how effective they are at meeting those aggressive goals that are written into the CLCPA. And so we can continue to move forward, make adjustments as necessary, so we can, keep having that positive impact on climate change. And lastly, Cornell University will be working and to support partnerships through the Cornell Small Farms Program and utilizing folks at the Cornell Cooperative Extension Networks to provide outreach to those underserved and underrepresented farms, and making sure that they have access to appropriate program information and technical assistance. They understand where and what technical assistance is available to them to help encourage increased participation in these projects and our programs. SUNY ESF will also be working to conduct the MMRV, but we'll be focusing on the forestry practices and looking at addressing barriers to forest practice implementation. So they're going to be utilizing $5.9 million to conduct MMRV of forest and agroforestry climate smart practices. And we'll be supporting the greenhouse gas accounting for the Regenerate New York forestry practices. In addition to that research and that work, folks at SUNY ESF will be working to develop guideline recommendations and assist in the development of MMRV protocols, again, that will be able to be used into the future to continue to assess how effective the best management practices are. And the last partner involved in this project is Syracuse University, and they will be working to create and expand markets for our climate smart commodities. They also will be utilizing $5.9 million. With this funding, they will be providing internship opportunities for underrepresented groups to allow them to gain experience working on large natural resource projects, specifically the Climate Smart Commodities project. They will also be utilizing this funding to produce outreach materials to communicate the benefits of climate smart forest management principles and to communicate the benefits of those practices and also support the Regenerate New York forestry practices. And they'll also be working to support the enhancement of landowner implementation of climate smart practices and working to kind of break down the barriers and encourage additional adoption of measurement and monitoring of climate benefits, and working towards developing markets that will promote climate smart commodities. So this is my last slide here to try to conclude and wrap things up and try to reflect on where things are in terms of program development. But the project funding that is made available through the New York State Connects project will ultimately help to further increase the adoption of practices as outlined in the Climate Action Council scoping plan. The funding that was requested will be used to assist the state in better quantifying our greenhouse gas emission reductions and our climate benefits through practice adoption. And, the ultimate success of this project will be reliant on a strong coordination and partnerships across several county soil and water conservation districts, Cornell and Cornell Cooperative Extension, and multiple state and federal agencies. Work is very much still ongoing to integrate the Climate Smart Commodities funding into our state cost share programs. And I can speak specifically for the work that the state committee staff and Ag and Markets are doing to try to integrate these funds into our climate resilient farming program. We're working very hard to do that, and we're working with Soil and Water and other advisory members to our state committee to get feedback on how this is all going to work. And we'll continue to reach out and get that feedback to ensure that this funding adds tremendous value to our existing state program structure. We want to figure out a way to make this work, and we're working very hard to do so. And our partners in soil and water conservation districts and our other advisory members to the state committee have already provided valuable feedback to help us move forward in a positive direction. So I'll just flash up my thank you slide. Again, thank you all for inviting me here to speak a little bit about the Climate Smart Commodities funding that was received by the state. I have a number of different contacts and email addresses up on the screen. Mine is listed. We have Brian Steinmuller, Assistant Director of Land and Water Resources, Greg Albrecht, our Principal Environmental Analyst, and Jennifer Clifford, who is the Climate Resilient Farming Program Manager. I will do my best to address and answer any questions that folks may have, but certainly if I'm not able to answer them, I will find the correct person who will, or you are more than welcome to reach out to any of the people on the screen for more information. I also want to mention that I did post some links in the chat prior to my presentation. Specifically, I put a link in there to the Regenerate New York program if anyone is interested in learning more about that. There is a link to the USDA Partnerships for Climate Smart Commodities webpage. That's kind of interesting because there's somewhere in there's a dashboard and a map where you can kind of see where all of the different projects that were funded through that program are located and what they're all about. And there's also, well, a link here on the slide, as well as a QR code, but a link to our State Soil and Water Conservation Committee website in the chat as well, which will take you to pages where you're able to find out more about the Climate Resilient Farming Program, as well as other cost share programs that we administer through the state committee.
So Bethany, this is Sean. There is a question in the there is a question in the chat related to integrating that Climate Smart commodity funding into the CRF framework, and that being that our practice is limited to NRCS practices.
Well, I know with the Climate Smart Commodities funding, there is a specific list of practices that those fundings will support. And I believe, as with our other cost share programs, they'll all have to be, meet the NRCS standards. So I believe the answer is yes. And if Brian Steinmuller is still on the line, maybe he can expand a little bit.
Hey, Bethany, it's Amanda. I asked the question. I just wanted to elaborate a little bit on the question, and it's very specific, and I don't want to take up a lot of time, but I've just recently become aware that there's some scenarios where, for example, we might want to be doing a planting in a location that could be considered a buffer, but where we might be planting fruit or nut trees, and NRCS does not recognize that as tree planting because it's a crop. So it just sort of doesn't fit when you're planting trees that are also considered a crop. And so I just wanted to flag that NRCS doesn't seem to be able to know, or at least at this point, my conversations haven't been able to figure out how to make that work. So just seemed like a lost opportunity.
Amanda.
Yeah, so that is a really there you
ahead,
are.
Beth.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, I unfortunately have to jump for a 1:30 meeting, but I saw that question and that's a really good elaboration there, Amanda. So yes, NRCS standards, and there's specific practices that through the Climate Smart Commodities they are accepting or approving, and others that we do through our CRF program that they may not, right? So that's where we're able to integrate the federal funds, but in a way that still allows the state programs flexibility that is necessary to do a host of other types of projects. Certainly adaptation and resilience practices that may not have a quantifiable reduction of emissions or sequestration. Climate Smart Commodities has said no to those, but obviously through our CRF program, that is very much an important goal. So we would continue to fund those with state resources, including scenarios that you just outlined.
Thank you.
Yep. Great job, Bethany. Thank you. I have to go now, but if there's any other questions that you can't answer, just let me know and we'll make sure we get those out to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, we have, thanks, Brian. Thanks for joining us, and good to see you. Yeah, we have a few minutes here before Alan. So if there's, then we have Bethany with us. So are there any other comments, questions, suggestions for her? Okay, well, Bethany, it looks like we made your job easy today.
You sure did. Thank you all so much. I guess I caught the after lunch lull.
Yeah, that's what happens. So, well, thank you, Bethany. I appreciate it. And so once again, we have a little bit of time here, so we'll just come back because I don't want to start in with Alan yet in case people were waiting to log in to see him. So I don't want them to miss that. So we'll come back at 1:40 with Alan Martinez from the Cornell Atkinson Center. So we'll see you all soon. Thanks again, Bethany.
Thank you.